Well, hello there, you scrub lords. As many of you are aware, a new weapon system is going to be coming to War Thunder soon. ATGMs. Now, I'm going to be honest, if you had told me that they would be adding these into War Thunder just a couple of weeks ago, I would have thought you were a dumbass. But since they released the video you see here, being constantly looped over and over, I thought I would give you guys some of my personal thoughts on the subject and why I don't think that ATGMs are going to be that overpowered. The first one, I don't think ATGMs are going to be completely changing the battlefield is due to how they work. To guide an ATGM accurately, you will need to be stationary, because moving will just throw the guidance sight all over the place, and therefore that will translate into missile movement, and, well, if your missile's flying over the place, you can't hit anything. Guiding an ATGM onto the target accurately will also require the operator to tunnel vision on the target. He has to keep that sight pointed at the target until the missile hits. And this leaves him vulnerable and stationary, and at the same time it doesn't give him very good situational awareness. Also, ATGMs fly at very, very low velocity, some even as low as 200 meters per second, which means that hitting long-range targets will require a great amount of patience and concentration in order to hit it. Especially if the vehicle is moving, which, if you could hit anything in the first place, is going to be a miracle in and of itself. I personally don't see this system being very newbie-friendly. It will take a very good operator to get the most out of these new ATGMs. Also, you have the problem, especially in the IT-1's case, of a very, very limited ammo count. This vehicle can only manage to carry about 15 missiles. Which in a long, drawn-out fight is gonna be a problem, because you're probably going to fire off, let's say, 5 to 10 missiles within the first 15 minutes of the battle. And so you're gonna, as the battle goes longer and longer and longer, it's gonna become more and more difficult to keep yourself in the fight. It's going to be especially true if, for example, you opt to take a slightly lower ammo count to reduce the chance of an ammo rack in your vehicle. So let's say you only take about 12 missiles. Well, that's taking away a good third of your firepower right there. And, well, it's going to be difficult, like I said, to maintain yourself on the battlefield without having to go back and rearm at the local capture point. And especially on some of these maps like Domination, or the game modes like Domination, it's very difficult to go and rearm at those points, especially if you have a very low ammo count, simply because those are usually right in the middle of the battle. So you're basically sitting there, completely stationary, trying to rearm your missiles while people are shooting at you. Yeah, that doesn't end very well. What else does this new system entail? Well, what it does entail is the introduction of a lot of other vehicles. As you can see here, this is an ATGM conversion of a Jagdpanzer 4-5. Those are some actual Jagdpanzers driving around right there doing some testing. And the Jagdpanzer 4-5 with the ATGMs mounted was called the Rakettenjagdpanzer. And the Rakettenjagdpanzer was simply a means of improving the anti-tank capabilities of the Jagdpanzer tank destroyer. This effectively gave the Bundeswehr a cheap, reliable, but very effective anti-tank weapon that they could produce in large numbers, and that they could maneuver effectively around the battlefield in support of other Allied forces and NATO forces. Also, let's take a quick second here to talk about where these sorts of vehicles will be situated in the tech tree, because a lot of people are kind of confused as to whether they're going to be premiums, whether they're not going to be premiums, or they're going to be regular vehicles within the tech tree. Now, personally, I don't see these vehicles being made premium anytime soon, or at all, if then. The reason for that is because these vehicles are post-war 1960s design vehicles generally. It would be the same as putting chieftains in the same games as King Tigers. It would make no sense whatsoever, and at the same time, it would completely change Tier 4 battles in general and the metas involved. I mean, could you imagine driving along in your King Tiger and all of a sudden getting hit by an ATGM that some fool just fired at about 1,000 meters away and has been guiding onto the target on you for the last 10 seconds or 15 seconds or so? It just doesn't make any sense in that sort of environment. Now, this brings me on to where they're going to be situated in the tech tree itself. Most of these vehicles are going to be Tier 5 end-of-the-line tank destroyers. One of the Gaijin developers said that the IT-1, for example, is going to be situated as the Tier 5 Russian tank destroyer, or SPG, which means that it's most likely going to be situated after vehicles like the Su-122-54, which is a very potent tank destroyer. As for the Germans with the Rakettenjagdpanzer, that's probably going to be they're probably going to do a little bit of tech tree movement. So what I would think that Gaijin is going to do is they're going to flesh out the lightly armored tank destroyer line that they've started with the Dicker Max and the Nashorn at tier 3, and move the Jagdpanzer 4-5 maybe to an early tier 5 battle rating, and then right after the Jagdpanzer 4-5, they're going to put the Raketenjagdpanzer. Now, I have no idea what they're probably going to put at tier 4. My guess would probably be the Sturrer Mill, which was a open-top tank destroyer armed with a high-velocity 128mm gun. I think that would fit in perfectly with the whole idea of these tank destroyers are very lightly armored, sometimes not very mobile, but they have guns that punch way above their tier. So what other vehicles do these new ATGMs entail other than the Raketenjagdpanzer and maybe some other variants of that? Well, the other major introduction to the American tank line in this case would be the M551 Sheridan. I think this is a pretty obvious pick for the Americans. They did say that they were planning on dramatically expanding the Tier 5 light tanks for the Americans, and they were going to be adding at least another one. So this seems like an obvious choice, because this one not only fits the American light tank role, but it is also fitted with a 152mm gun launcher. And what I mean by a gun launcher means that it would fire these large caliber heat rounds. Also, it could be loaded with a Shillelagh ATGM and can be fired at long range against hardened or more potent targets. Targets such as T-62 main battle tanks, or T-54s, or IS-4s, or IS-3s, these sorts of targets. However, again, these all have the same basic issues when they are firing ATGMs. They have to be stationary in order to be guiding these missiles accurately, at least from what I've been able to see. They have to tunnel vision on the target so that they won't be aware of their surroundings while they're guiding this missile onto the target, making them an easy target to hit. And on top of that, even if they do hit, generally these ATGMs don't have the penetration in order to effectively destroy the target, or maybe even if you do hit, they may not penetrate. Just because you hit a target with an ATGM doesn't mean it's going to destroy it. So you will still need to aim for weak spots on a tank, so just shooting it in its strongest armor may not do the trick. In any case, I think I've rambled on long enough here about ATGMs in general. I'm thinking of maybe developing these talks into sort of a series. Maybe start turning this into sort of a Devblog chats sort of video. Anyways, like the video if you liked it, dislike it if you didn't like it, and leave a comment down below on what you think these new ATGMs could potentially do. If you haven't already, get subscribed, and if you haven't seen my Super Unicorn reviews, I'll leave a link in the video description to the playlist and go and check those out. This has been Many Miles Away. Thanks for listening. Have a good day.